When you're selling your home, the pressure to say yes is all around you. Most sellers say yes to things that they never should have because it feels easier than saying no. And some of those yeses, they're going to cost you real money. Some cost you the deal. And a few of them, they're going to put you in a situation that takes months to untangle. And I've been helping people navigate major life transitions for over 20 years. And the real estate, it's almost always part of that story. I've watched sellers where they make these mistakes over and over again, and they're avoidable with the right teammates. And it's because no one told them what to watch out for. So today, we're going to go through the 10 things that you should never agree to when you are selling your home. And some of these sound completely harmless. That's exactly why they're dangerous, though. So here's a question I got a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to talk through it. And here's the scenario. So they'd been under contract for 3 weeks. Things were going smoothly. And then the buyers started asking for things. It started out as small things, then bigger things. And by the time they got to closing, or they were coming up on closing, they were just exhausted. They'd agreed to 4 things that they shouldn't have. And one of them was about to cost them real money at the closing table. Not a question like we normally have, but it was a scenario that was absolutely worth unpacking. Most sellers, they think the hard part is getting an offer. And I'm here to tell you, it's not. The hard part is protecting your position once you have one. The negotiation here, it doesn't stop when you accept the offer itself. In a lot of ways, it's just getting started. In fact, that's why I think not only you're hiring your real estate professional to help guide you in the preparation phase for whenever you're selling your home, but you're paying them to hold the deal together, to find that negotiation space in order to actually accomplish your goal of getting to the closing table. And there's 10 things that we need to highlight. Because some of them, they're about the showing process. Some of them are about what happens when you get under contract. And a few of them, they're about the professional that you choose to represent you. Because that decision, that shapes everything and how you're moving forward. Walk through this list and you will protect your equity, your timeline, and your sanity. And here's the thing, none of this requires being difficult. It just requires knowing what you're agreeing to before you agree to it. And if anything I say is confusing at any point, look in the caption below. You'll see my link there. Book time. I will connect you with a real estate professional that can help guide you through all of these things. It is a confusing market. And sometimes we just need somebody to walk alongside us, the right person, in order to protect that equity, as I said. Now, point number 1, these are unscheduled showings. So we're assuming that you have prepared your home and now it's on the market and you have these unscheduled showings. So what I suggest is never let someone walk up and ask to see your home. I know it's tempting because you're like, holy smokes, there's somebody right there. Especially if the market's slow or you've been sitting for a few weeks. But when someone knocks and says they love the neighborhood and want to take a quick look, your first thought is typically, maybe this is the buyer. But here's the problem. You don't know who they are. You don't know if they're actually qualified. You don't know if they're actually interested or just curious, or in some cases, are they casing the place? A legitimate buyer, they're going to call the number on the sign and they're going to schedule either through their agent or through the person that's listing the home. That's how it works. That's how you protect yourself. And if they're serious, again, that's what they'll do. That legitimate buyer will always be willing to schedule a showing through proper channels because they have different motivations and actually perhaps want to be in that home, right? At least that's the litmus test for it. So the ones who won't, though, the buyers who won't, that is telling you something. Pay attention to the signals. All right, number 2, this is never let the buyers work on the home before closing. And this one shows up in a very specific way. So you're under contract, maybe you've already moved out, and the buyers say, hey, can we just start painting? Can we start working on the floors? We want to have them done before we move in. And it seems harmless because the property, it's sitting empty anyways. But until that property records at the county and the money is in your hands, it is still your home. And if something goes wrong during that work, a leak, a damaged floor, an injury, it becomes your problem, not theirs. And I've seen deals where they fall apart at the last minute just because of this. If buyers have already been doing the work in there and the deal, it collapses, Now you're dealing with a property that has been modified, potentially damaged, and you have no clean path forward. The real here, it's simple. Nothing gets touched until closing is complete. No painting, no demo, no fumigation, no contractors. And if they want to personalize, that's their project after the keys are in their hand. Point number 3, and this is probably the most common one on this list, is never allow early move-ins. So the scenario, it usually sounds sympathetic. The buyer sold their place early, they've got a truck full of furniture, they need a week, and maybe it really isn't their fault. Maybe their lender dropped the ball or timing fell through on their end. So they ask if they can just move in a little early. The answer has to be no. And here's why. Without a proper rental agreement, once someone moves in, they've effectively taken possession of your property. If they damage something, you're in an argument. If they get hurt, the liability conversation gets complicated fast. And if the deal somehow falls apart after they're in, which does happen, even after loan docs are signed, you now have a tenant who didn't buy your home. And you have to figure out how to get them out. Possession transfers at closing, not at convenience. Nothing transfers before the deal is done. Number 4, these are lowball offers from buyers that you can't verify. So there's a version of a lowball offer that's a legitimate opening move by a potential buyer. The buyer has an agent, they have a pre-approval, and they're testing where you'll go. That's negotiation. You counter, they respond, and sometimes you find common ground. But there's another version out there. A random email shows up from someone claiming to be an investor with a cash offer. No agent, no proof of funds, no one following up. And sometimes sellers, they're tempted because the cash offer sounds clean and fast. And if you can't verify who they are, though, delete it. All right, we're halfway through, and here's the thing. The first 4 that we went through, these were mostly about protecting your home and your timeline. The next 6, they get into contract terms and professional decisions. And these are where most sellers leave real money on the table. Don't tune out now. These are the ones that you want to pay attention to even more. Point number 5, this is never agree to repair commitments without a dollar cap. And this is a technical one, but it matters. If you are under contract and the inspection comes back and the buyers, they're requesting X, Y, and Z to be repaired. Sometimes those requests, they're absolutely reasonable. So that could be health, safety items, legitimate issues that showed up, and you may agree to handle some of them. That's absolutely fine. That's what you have to do to keep the deal together. The problem is when the contract language says something like seller agrees to remediate the issue without a dollar limit attached to it. Because now you've signed a blank check as the seller. And a family wrote into the show last year where they had agreed to address a mold issue that came up during an inspection. The remediation ended up running close to $60,000 when they went and did the actual estimate. They'd agreed to do this without ever knowing what it could cost. So guess what they did? They walked away from it. They had an open-ended check and they were not prepared to spend that. The deal fell apart and they had to relist the home, go through the process again. Very emotional, but it's because they were not protected up front. Any repair commitment that you make, it needs a ceiling, and it should be something like this. So seller agrees to address up to X dollars in repairs. Anything above that, we negotiate. Without that cap, you're exposed, and you should have the right professional guiding you on your team in order to prevent that from becoming your reality. Number 6, these are long escrows and unrealistic contingency periods. So standard closing, that's 30 to 45 days. That keeps momentum strong, keeps it going forward, and that reduces the window for things to go sideways. So every extra week, that opens a door that you may not want opened. That opens it for rates to move, a job situation change, the buyer's motivation for it to fade. Time kills deals. That's not a saying, that's reality. That's the pattern that I've watched play out. That same principle applies to contingency periods. Inspection, loan, appraisal, these need defined timelines. If a buyer wants 21 days to do inspections and then 30 days for their loan contingency, they're not doing due diligence. They're buying time while you sit. And be especially careful about accepting an offer that's contingent on the buyer selling their current home, especially if it hasn't been listed yet. You have no idea how long that's going to take. You've now introduced a variable that you have no control over. Meanwhile, you can't accept another offer. Protect yourself. Point number 7, don't accept buyer upgrade requests once you are under contract. This one tends to start small, but it grows from there. Can you paint the front door? Can you replace the kitchen faucet? And when that happens, you have opened Pandora's box. The buyer, they made their offer based on what they saw. If they want to personalize the home, that's their project, not yours. Now, repairs, those are different. If inspection reveals a real issue, a legitimate health and safety item, you address what you've agreed to address. But aesthetic upgrades? No. New countertops? No. Different flooring? Absolutely not. That's not your responsibility. This is what you do. Know your line in the sand before you're under pressure. It's a lot easier to hold it when you've already decided exactly where it's at. Point number 8, never negotiate personal property inside the real estate transaction. So buyers, they fall in love with the dining room set, the patio furniture, the mounted TV, that beautiful staging that you paid for to make that home shine. And sometimes they want to roll those things right into the offer. Take everything as part of the deal. It sounds harmless, but here's the thing. Lenders, they don't like it. Underwriters, they can flag it. And when personal property gets mixed into a real estate transaction, it can create questions about the true purchase price. That can complicate the appraisal. That can put the whole deal at risk. If buyers want to purchase something in your home, handle it separately. Make that a different emotional decision. Make that a different transaction. A simple bill of sale outside of escrow is going to pay dividends for you. And do all this after the contingencies are cleared. Keep the real estate transaction clean. This is going to help protect you and the deal. All right, point number 9, never accept an offer without a pre-approval or proof of funds. And I know this sounds obvious, but here's how it's going to sneak into your deal. The buyers, they're going to sound charming. The agent, they're going to be responsive. And the offer, it's going to be good. And when you ask about pre-approval, they say it's in process, or the money is coming from a family member, or they're pulling it from a refinance. And you think, okay, we'll move forward while they get that together. Don't do it. Because what you're doing now is you're pulling your home off the market and you're losing market time on a buyer who may not be able to close. A serious buyer should want to prove that they can close. And a pre-approval letter from a legitimate lender or documented proof of funds for a cash buyer, those should be conditions of accepting any offer, not a formality, a requirement. And here's where the life to wealth piece matters most, because that equity, the money sitting in your home right now, think of it like a bank account. That's not just closing proceeds. For most families, that's the seed capital for the next chapter of life, whatever comes after the sale. So that could be the next home, an investment for a retirement fund. It starts by making sure you're only dealing with buyers who can actually close. Point number 10, be cautious about hiring a friend or family member who just got their real estate license. This one, it's hard to say, and I get it because I've been there. Someone in your circle is newly licensed and they're eager, and it feels right to support them, to give them your business. But here's the reality. Not all real estate professionals are created equally. Just because they're new does not mean that they're bad. What it does mean is that you need to do more due diligence. Your home is likely your biggest financial asset, and an inexperienced agent, however well-intentioned, that can cost you more than their commission is worth. I've seen out-of-area agents list homes with no local market knowledge, no signage, no serious marketing strategy, and no idea how to handle a negotiation when things get complicated. And the seller, they end up sitting on the market, eventually relisting, and then they're losing time and money in the process. The good news, though, is that you don't have to choose between supporting someone you care about and protecting your financial outcome. You can care about someone and still hire the most qualified professional for the job. Those things are not in conflict. If you're looking for someone with real experience tailored to your situation and a real process, that is part of what I do. I connect you with real estate professionals across this country, but not without doing something first. First, when we talk, my link, it's in the caption below. We're going to come up with a strategy for you to reach that life transition goal. Then we're going to focus on the wealth. How do we optimize this transition for wealth and get you the right teammates for that? And then 3, we focus on the real estate. Because the bigger picture here is most sellers, they go into this process focused on getting to close. And that's understandable. Closing is part of the goal. But the real goal isn't just the closing. The real goal is closing with your equity intact, your timeline protected, and a solid foundation and a plan for you to achieve that life transition goal, that life transition intention. The mistakes on this list don't always show up as disasters. Sometimes they show up quietly, a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there, a week of market time wasted, an agreement that you can't get out of. And when you add those things up across a transaction, it gets expensive fast. Always remember, good decisions, they start with good information. And now you have 10 things to watch out for. You're equipping yourself in order to be successful. I'm Weldon Hobbs, and when we're making big life transition decisions, we start with your life goal, we optimize it for wealth, and then we focus on the real estate. Remember, plan with purpose, give yourself a chance of success, and I'll see you in the next one.